Happy Halloween, one and all. I thought this year I would entertain you with a frightening story, a tale of horror and suspense of one of the most disturbing and horrendous, most frightening and bone-chilling of all stories I have ever read in my life. And I thought on Halloween, this is the opportunity to share it with all of you. This is a story about a little Spider-Man and his clone. Okay, I suppose that's a little too scary for all of you. Alright, I'll tone it down a little bit. This is a story about the scariest thing to ever be released inside a box marked Transformer. Something that wasn't Autobot or Decepticon, Maximal, or Predacon, but an abomination of plastic that no man was ever meant to create. Something so horrifying. It was available for years after its series was long dead. This, my friends, is a tale of Energon Alpha Quintesson. I remember when I first laid my eyes on this toy. It was horrific. It was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen inside a Transformers box. I mean, just to take a look at it made you appalled at what they would release as a Transformer. The first thing that caught my attention I can remember was the strange articulation. Now, I can remember that the arms were okay. Bicep swivels, elbows, and shoulders that were double jointed. They had a decent range. And he actually had extra arms that had its own bicep swivel and had a ball joint. But that was just minor compared to all these little tiny spines it had on its belly. Now, they looked ball jointed, but they weren't. They're shaped like pinchers, but they can't pinch. And he's got some on his back that do the exact same thing. In fact, it's a soft plastic. It's articulated, but I'm scared to even move it because they might break. I can also remember his strange body hinge. It was a very snake-like body, but it only had one point of articulation, and it didn't even go very far. I was infuriated that something that should have had a ton of motion to it was completely stunted. And the jaw on the toy was only worse. Both jaws were hinged, but because of the way they were hinged, you couldn't make it look like his mouth was closed at all. I mean, either the teeth overlapped horribly, or you're always left with this huge gape in the side of the mouth. It couldn't come down all the way, where it seemed like an extra hinge would have allowed it to do so. Now, it had tendrils. I remember these little tendrils. They were in some kind of flex wire wrapped in plastic. But flex wire always means that there's a chance that these will wear out and break inevitably. There's no choice. And because of the gimmick and how springy this plastic was, there was no way to get these things to hold the pose you had intended. It'd take you 10 minutes just to get one positioned where you wanted it. And then, even if you did, the weight would probably just make the whole thing flop down, and you'd have to start all over again. It's such a waste. Great idea, but poorly executed. And then there's the fact, the most horrifying of all.
There's no transformation feature at all.
Even in the dark days of Action Masters, at least they had transforming weaponry or vehicles. This, nothing. It was a transformer with no transforming whatsoever. Unless you transformed it into a refund, which is what a lot of people did. What? This isn't scary? It's no transformation. Come on. Nothing? Alright, you little snots asked for it, alright?
Now, just as frightening as the toy, I remember how frightening the Energon cartoon was. Oh my god, what horrible dubbing! What absolute abomination of animation! But I can remember the Alpha Q from that series, and it wasn't anything like this. The colors were very subdued and borderline silver, rather than green. There's 3 shades of green in this toy, and a lot of yellow that I don't remember at all. A lot of red that I don't remember at all. It was extremely disappointing to see how inaccurate the paint job was, and I know it was probably to sell the toy to children, but if it doesn't look like how it does on the show, the kids aren't going to recognize it. It's no wonder this thing shelf-warmed for so long. I mean, it's just inexcusable. At the very least, a little bit of silver to actually tell that this is the same character. And, oh, the detailing. I will admit, the detailing on this toy is really nice. It's supposed to look like a dead Sharkticon, and it does the job okay. It looks like a Sharkticon invaded by a centipede. But it was okay. And I will admit, the toy had a base that I really liked, with a lot of faded out silver and dark brownish gray parts. It looked like a very accurate mound of old wires. And this is also where I draw some of my problem. You can see the same wires in the spine of this toy. You can see them moving up all the way through this tendril that forms his lower body. And he has detailing at the bottom to blend it into the base. And it's actually really well done detailing. I am not ashamed to admit it. But the only way to see the detailing is from the back. Who would honestly display a toy like this? I mean, it's such a nice design feature, but they couldn't even be bothered to include it on the front as well.
What, a spine made out of cables isn't creepy? I've got nothing from you here. I mean, are you even a... You're just not imagining it right, or... Oh, no, I know what it is. You're too used to Revenge of the Fallen RC, aren't you? Yeah, you little snots here, you're completely... You know the cable spine thing by now. It's no big deal. Fine. Seriously, nothing?
The story sucks.
You shut up! Okay, fine. The gimmicks. The gimmicks will get you. I know they will.
What everyone remembers about this toy, however, was the rolling gimmick. Rolling the base along the ground, move the tendrils around. Now, it's a little hard because the slightest stop in motion will cause the tendril to stop moving completely. And now, if you've got a nice, flat, way wide open surface, this is okay. But you also need the arms scrunched up in order to make this work. If you've got them too far out, the tentacles start clashing into the arms, and it completely stops their rotation. So everything has to be positioned just right. And keep in mind the aforementioned problem with the tendrils. These were impossibly hard to position. So this made the gimmick a little bit almost useless. Now, it was neat when it worked, but it was tricky to get working. It was more disappointing than frightening, I admit. But what was really frightening, oh, I remember. The inaccuracy that everyone remembers from this toy was the gun on his back. This huge thing sticking out of the upper back that was never in the show, just there to give him more gimmicks because they knew they couldn't sell it as it was. It was just such... It was so random and disappointing. The nice thing was you could remove it, and he had sockets everywhere to place it. The whole point of giving him so many of these sockets was because any Omnibot or Terracon weapon could fit inside them, and each one of these could also hold an Energon star. And while that might sound kind of neat, and they were basically like mini-cons that didn't do anything except make him look ridiculous and colorful and sparkly with stars all over him. That's not a very menacing alien now, is it? And you'd have so many different colored weapons on him, he'd look ridiculous. And you really need 7 other toys just to make this one passable? That's inexcusable.
Still nothing? Okay, it's a monster loaded down with colorful stars and multicolored weapons all over him.
That's not scary at all.
You're right. That's not scary. I'm sorry. Never mind. But, what instead of guns? What if he had attack penguins?
Lame.
But they explode when you throw them.
That's just stupid.
Okay. I will rip your face off.
The main feature of the toy was the switching heads, since this was based on a Quintesson after all. Now, unfortunately, the show had 4 heads. Here, you only get 3. The gimmick works well enough, but the faces are so recessed into his head, it's difficult to get a good look at them. It's incredibly disappointing, and it doesn't seem like it had to be that far in. It's even tricky to get a good look at them on a camera. But it's manageable. You get reminiscent faces of the original. There's that king thing that's always war or anger. I forget what he's supposed to represent, but he's not the right color here. Okay, there's that sultan kind of wisdom face, and I don't know. And then you have this one, which I think was everyone's favorite because it reminded them of the death face, but that isn't death. It's not green. He didn't have that crest on his head. Where's the crest around the side? The helmet. The only thing he has in common is that he's grimacing like he's passing a stone, and that's the only thing that was actually the same. It's so disappointing. I mean, the one time we get a Quintesson, and we couldn't even get the face of death, the most popular one? I mean, what a ripoff is that? I mean, the toy had so little going for it, a bit of a G1 nod might have actually helped it along, but they completely threw it out the window.
And that is the tale of Alpha Quintesson, a toy released months after he had been completely written out of the show and it was made completely pointless, and answering the demands of maybe 5 people. Nice idea, but if you're going to give us a Quintesson, give us a Quintesson and not a centipede tank cable thing. And that brings us to the end of our story. And I realize now wasn't scary in the least. Okay, this has been a monumental failure, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But I do have one more surprise for all you little damn kids. Okay, I am done. You want scary? Fine, you got it. I am the plastic addict. Or am I?